I went to LA with my ex-husband on an $11 ticket from New York to LA. And in LA, I met with some executives from HBO, and I met with some executives from other companies.
But you met them like because your husband was meeting them, or for yourself?
For myself.
How did you get that meeting?
My ex-husband was out there on a job. I went there with him. He had some credits, which is why I got an $11 ticket. I met them because I was already a producer, and I met this one producer through someone in film, and I was already like kind of I was already mingling with people in New York, and one producer I met through school. I forget how I met this producer, but she's a producer. Her name's Geraldine Moriba, and she and I had made a connection in New York, and she was always in my corner and was like, you should go to LA to talk to people. And my goal was to get to a writer's room, and so she got me in contact with somebody in LA, and I didn't get the person's contact information, so I went more like a stalker style and figured out how to get this executive's number, and I found a site that got me these numbers, and I fucking called, like cold called these people, kind of like I did with Fader. I'm looking for this one executive.
Your mic is moving around a lot. Like that. All right.
Went to LA, stayed at a hotel, UCLA. This is how life happens for me. My life is a fucking movie, and I can't even make this shit up. Went to LA with my ex-husband. He had a gig out there. I was there for a week. Before quarantine, everybody shut down. And while we're there, they're fucking putting up hand sanitizers. They're preparing for quarantine. We like, oh shit, we didn't think this shit was serious. So one day, my ex is like at rehearsal. I come back to the hotel. I meet Geraldine Moriba. The only reason why I recognize this woman is because we've been talking through email, and I saw her. I had already researched her, so I knew what she looked like. And I came up to my hotel room, and I saw the woman checking out, and I was like, Geraldine? And she was like, how do you know me?
Yeah.
And I said, I'm Tamika. And she said, oh shit, like this is such a coincidence. This is my life. Like I was like, we were prepared that week to meet each other 2 weeks prior, 2 weeks after that meeting, that moment. And she was like, the only reason why I gave you attention is because you recognize my pictures. She's like, how did you recognize my pictures? I was like, I have photographic memory of people's images. And so that I ended up scheduling a meeting prior to meeting her with the executive. She had already told me, like, you need to meet this person. So I had already made the dots connect while I was in LA, and I had signed up for a meeting with an executive from HBO. Went to Santa Monica.
But that's all you got for yourself?
Yeah. All this shit was for myself.
Yeah.
My ex-husband had nothing to do with this shit.
Okay, so it seemed like you was trying to say that because of him, he was doing stuff. Well, maybe
No. Because of him, it was the reason why I went to LA.
Oh, gotcha.
Which is the reason why I ended up going to Santa Monica and having it. I went to HBO. I went to HBO, had a meeting with people. I was like, look, I'm hungry. I'm from New York. This is what I want to do. I want to be in a writer's room. How do I do this? And it was like, listen, you got to be an executive assistant. Work your way that way for a year. Get into a writer's room that way. I was like, I don't want to do that shit. I got something to say, but I'm hungry. I'm fucking hungry, starving.
But you're now 2020 hindsight, you think that was the wrong way to go about it?
No, that was an amazing way to go about it.
Okay.
Because I got some insight that I didn't have prior to that.
And what
they
was
were
that
like,
insight? That they was telling you to do an insight that you didn't want to do. So what's the insight?
The insight was like, you need to make a name for yourself. And the executive was like, I got on the phone with the executive that cold called because I fucking got her cell phone number out of this site that gives you people's numbers. First of all, I don't even remember this site, but these sites exist.
Yeah.
And you can get anybody's number.
All right.
And I was just like, fuck it. I'm going to call. And I'm old school. Like, I'm not that young to the point where I'm like, I'm scared of calling people. I still got that bit of like, we going to call somebody until we get an answer. I'm relentless. So I called her and I was like, hi. And she was like, I'm at a wedding. How did you get my number? I was like, yeah, so I got your number. She's like, let's schedule a meeting. Schedule a meeting with her via phone. And she was like, well, if you're in LA, let's schedule an appointment. Schedule an appointment if I was with somebody else. But while I was on the phone with her, she was like, so this is what you want to do. Cool. We don't know you. And she said to me in 2020, she said, you need to make a book. You need to write a book.
Oh, like a novel.
a novel, something, whatever.
Yeah.
Make a name for yourself. And I was like, fuck you. I'm here to get in a writer's room. What are you talking about? Like a book? That is not why I wanted this meeting. She's like, no, you need to make a book. And I went to LA and it was like, this is...
But a book about what?
She didn't tell me what the book was about. She said, you need to write a book.
Okay.
Make a name for yourself.
Yeah. So basically, like,
then you get
whatever film you want to do,
you got to make a name for yourself because you're black, you're brown. We don't have the luxury of just being like having a dad. We don't have. She told me this one thing. She was like, "You have privilege. You do not have entitlement. If you had entitlement, you would be somebody's daughter, niece, and you would get up in the ranks.
Right.
But you don't have that. So you need to make a name for yourself. And I think the way you need to do it is make a book. So I was like, this lady's fucking tripping. What the fuck is she talking about? I don't know what she's talking about. So I said, sure, whatever. Make the meeting in LA. He gives me all the generic information. But honestly, like somebody who's from New York, went to LA, never ever had an opportunity. I fucking made an opportunity happen. Which goes back to me getting that opportunity at Fader. Like, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to eat if I have to eat.
But so what happened with the book situation? What did you do with that information?
Pause. I was like, she's fucking tripping. So I don't know what the fuck she's talking about. I didn't take advantage of it. Okay. The book is in progress right now. Not on purpose, but it was more like, oh, this makes sense. And I'm very spiritual, so the universe talks to me in bits and pieces and information.
What's your favorite movie and why?
That's a hard one. The first thing that came to mind was Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I think it's the most beautiful love story I've ever saw.
What kind of stories do you think you would be writing?
Right now they're all about relationships, all different types of relationships, and I think that's the sociologist in me that enjoys human connection so much that I want to write stuff about it.
Yeah.
Some of my stories have been about the estrangements between family members, the weird relationships with somebody you're not married to, but like you're living like you're married and it might not work out. Best friendships. I want to write a story about a father and a daughter. That seems to be like tough, tricky. Half the time I'm writing stuff to figure out my own shit.
Yeah.
And like, I don't always know what to do, so I'll write. I think writing is the best form for me. And sometimes I don't know how to express myself verbally. It's hard for me, so I was like, I'll write it. One of my best friends and I, we have the same trait. She's like, I can't tell this person how I feel, but I could write him a letter. And I was like, this is the cutest form of expressing yourself, but depending on who you give it to or depending on who you share it with, it might be an overshare or like, oh, I finally understand you. Like, I get it now.
What kind of work do you do now?
Right now, I am a content manager, which means I essentially produce stuff for a company that needs help putting stuff on a website for people to look at. Sometimes I can produce a podcast, sometimes I'll produce videos. Essentially, it's just being a producer for an organization that an organization that needs the support.
Now, do you just work for one company or you work for like one or two?
Well, right now I'm just working with one company, and also like I'm about to be an educator again. I'd like to do more freelance writing projects next year, and like figure out different projects that will make sense for me to produce of other people's stuff.
Gotcha.
Like films and documentaries and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's Backstage has a bunch of, like, they're looking for producers on there. But you also, aren't you working on a podcast, like your own?
I am working on a podcast, which will be out first week of January. We have pushed it back so much and we were trying to do it, but my best friend and I, we just linked up last year, February, and I was dating. She was like, not dating, she was with one guy, but it felt like she was with multiple people with this one guy. And then we would just always like have like a moment of pillow talk. and like just come over and really talk about where we were and what we wanted. And it was just like, why the fuck are we not filming ourselves do this? And so we came up with this idea. And a year later, we are ready to release this podcast. So I'm so excited about it. And I'm also very equally nervous. I'm very nervous about this podcast. I don't know why, but I'm nervous.
I mean, you're probably nervous because you're
I'm in it.
You're in it, and then you're also being vulnerable.
Being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Talking about some vulnerable shit. So, in a funny way.
What are your aspirations for that podcast?
I think it's really creating a name for myself. Like, I think people are gonna like me as a personality before they see my films. And years ago, I met this woman who, her name's, well, I'm not gonna say her name, but she's an exec at HBO, and I was like so hungry. Went to LA 2 years ago, and I wanted to get into a writer's room for a TV network.
But how does this,
Does this connect?
Connect with the podcast?
So I wanted to do something where it's like, I want my films and things to be recognized. And the woman I met back then was like, you should make a name for yourself. Like through a different type of medium. Don't just try to get right in here. And I was like, that makes no sense. And years later, I'm like, oh, I have a book of short stories that I want to release next year. I'm doing this podcast that people can start getting familiar with me. I was like, oh, she seems cool. Like, I see where she's coming from, so that when I do release my fucking films, y'all be like, whoever is like interested in my stuff, they would gravitate to that stuff. I would already have an audience.
Gotcha.
So the goal is to build an audience based off like my personality, and be like, I actually make some really good shit.
Yeah.
Not just like talking about it. I am doing it. So that's it. I want you to really just love my work, love what I do, watch my films, and maybe it changes your life about something. Like, art's supposed to do that, so I want all my shit to do that for whoever watches it or listens to it.
That's dope. That's dope.
Yeah, roundabout story to say that's why.
Yeah, and so you have a couple of episodes kind of in the can already?
Yep.
Four episodes.
4 episodes.
And how do you see yourself coming up with, so is that a season?
It's a season.
So 4 episodes would be a season?
Yep.
And then
this is like this is a launch, but it's a soft launch. It's like more like we're not going ham on marketing and promotion because we don't even know what we got right now. It's really like, let's just see. Let's just throw this on the wall and see if it sticks.
Gotcha. And if it sticks, then you guys
we're
will go into like,
on
the actual real season 1.
Yeah, the real season 1.
This is like a pilot.
This is like a pilot. Real
Copy.
season 1 looks like 6 to 8 episodes. Now we done lived some life. We actually, like, our lives are totally different than it was at the top of the year. We are meeting different people. We're experiencing, we both have to have an episode about this because we both legitimately were dating these guys around the same, 2 different guys. And we both made huge mistakes. Mine is bigger, but we both made big mistakes. And so there's an episode that I think that we should definitely talk about in regards to what happens when someone in like your dating season that you're really liking, they make a mistake. How do you heal from that? Or does it even make sense to do that? And so she and I now have so much experience and we're still learning from it. But I think most importantly, we want people to like take away something good from it, because we see podcasts now with women and sometimes it could be a little raunchy.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I was fucking him and sucking him and da-da-da, and I did that one, and get money and blah, blah, and we're not those girls. We're not those women. We're like, yeah, we like dating, but we're trying to get better as people. And then how we get better is like, all right, well, I'm flawed, so what you do? Oh, I did this too. Oh, fuck.
Yeah, as you get better, then your relationships will get better.
Right. So I think we got like, I have literally like ideas on my phone right now. Like, oh, we need to talk about this. We need to talk about that. We gotta talk about that. Because one of our episodes is talking about, there's an episode called Is Your Zaddy Your Daddy? And it's funny that she created that name, but it's more like about how you date somebody that's like similar to your father. So is this guy really like a reflection of your dad? And what's the relationship that you have with your father and with other men? It's like, we like to stem things off like that, but just like give it to you in like a bite size that popular culture right now is all about.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about that. I think you'll see my personality. I don't have to be that serious. I'm a little bit like, you know, spicy, sassy, all that shit.